especially considering the time after lunch and the day. So it's probably really important for you to be here, or you're working with either of us. So truly appreciated. So really nice to be here with everyone. We're here to talk a bit about attribution, measurement, and how the industry changed again, because it keeps changing. I think we are having kind of a similar panel every year, and every year we have new topics to discuss, and things are always changing. So I will start with introducing myself, and then I'll let the distinguished panel members to introduce themselves. And I will ask you to also say something that you do in your personal life, a hobby or something that you care about. So you'll be a bit embarrassed. And I'll start with myself. I'm Hadar Telem. I'm Director of Marketing Science and Operations at INCRMNTAL. It's a long title. I manage the customer success and analytics. I actually used to be a customer of INCRMNTAL when I was Director of Marketing Analytics at Huge Games. Previously, I was in Playtica. So I've been here for a while. I've been seeing the industry changes. And what I like of my hobby is that I also sing. I have kind of a folk band. We're actually performing next week in Tel Aviv in a folk club here. So yeah, next Wednesday if you want. Doing a segue. Amir?
Everyone, I'm Shaval from Plarium. We don't need maybe you can give me the marketing for a second.
You want mine?
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Shaval from Plarium, Senior Director of Business Applications, mostly in charge of marketing technology at Plarium for the past 8.5 years. And something I try to do in my spare time is be a hobbyist gardener. Not a big garden, just a balcony with some plants, but just relaxing, and I like it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dan. I'm from Papaya Gaming, 5 years in Papaya. I am a strategy innovation group lead. And what I love to do in my spare time, I love to do scuba diving. After we have a lot of noise and fast reactions, let's say, environment on our day-to-day. So when I scuba dive, it's mostly quiet. So it's fun.
Hello, everyone. Fear Crispo, CEO and founder of TAP. We develop mobile apps in the utility space, and I've been doing that for the past 10 years. And in terms of hobbies, like hiking on the weekends when I have time.
Cool. Very for a lot of variation in our hobbies, so it's nice. Basically, I want to recap a bit about what changed in the industry from like the broader perspective, and then I'm going to ask you how your role changed. So basically, we've been going over like privacy-centric world, IDFA going away like 4 years ago. Now it's kind of things are kind of rolling the wheel back with some Facebook returning to AMM, Google going off privacy sandbox, kind of shutting it down for now. Scan, like Apple introduced App Attribution Kit. A lot of changes kind of were happening. Yes, okay. Many changes were happening, and I was wondering, how did it affect your role this year?
So indeed, we see a kind of a backward turn in terms of privacy. First of all,
talk close to the microphone.
So as I started to say, we see a backward turn about privacy, and first for the technical teams, it creates a lot of work to re-adopt things. I think also the UA teams are very happy with being able to go back and use real data or realistic data in more channels than before. I think it's not the end of it. I mean, privacy for many reasons, or maybe just one redhead reason, is going away. And I think it's a big impact together with other things happening. A lot of talks today about generative AI, about D2C. Those are also impacting our industry. And it's not only about how we measure the first engagement with the user, meaning the install, but also the events that come after it.
So indeed, I think that the last year have been interesting. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we saw one trend going more privacy centric, while the last year we saw few moves from Facebook, mostly the SRNs, Facebook, TikTok, and few other partners integrating, going more collaborating with the with the MMPs, and sharing more data in order to give us more credibility or more postbacks in order to get the attributions and get more unified views. Up until 1 year ago, I would say we had a lot of challenges when we saw SK network, one attribution, MMP, another attribution, SRN was another attribution. And then you can also have another attribution internally within your company, and you have 4 different attribution views. You needed to decide what is the right one in order to make an action. And this was a big challenge. And I think the last year we saw a trend that's basically we cut off or moved from 4 or 5 different attributions into 2, 3. We still have a way to go, but it's much better than previous years.
I think we're seeing some correlation between the presidential parties in US and then the privacy shifts. We're seeing companies like Google saying, okay, we're going to cut cookies and then we're cutting ad blocks, and then they're not they're doing backwards, and then they're doing fingerprinting back, called it probabilistic in iOS. We're seeing AMM and Facebook. I think it's more of a governmental shift, and then the companies say, okay, we're going to go to that direction. Overall, since iOS 14.6, we've seen scan. Now we're seeing AMM. From June, we're seeing Apple allowing more like with AAK, with more info about that you can get from the view-throughs and re-engagement later. So overall, more data, but not as, it's never going to be the way it was before, but it's still better.
I think it's important. Yeah. I think it's important to note that basically also kind of the UA role did change. I would say that from my perspective, and I think I hadn't mentioned what INCRMNTAL is doing. So basically we're a measurement platform that doesn't require user level data and measures true impact onto like marketing budgets, onto overall performance. And I do think that although basically we're kind of rolling back and the world is less privacy centric than it was 2 years ago, the problems with understanding all the value from attribution still persist. But the role of marketing UA is kind of easier now when it's back to kind of normal, how it was 2-3 years ago. Can you mention how marketing UA changed? Because you're more, I think all of us are more on the technical supportive side of marketing analytics, marketing tech, but UA team has also changed their role during the years. It used to be more like privacy when it became more prominent, made it harder and required more sophistication from UA managers. So how do you see that now affecting UA teams?
I don't think that UA team has an easier life today. I think things became more complicated for them. Even though some of the things that they were trying were because of privacy, like using web to app on mobile campaigns, or trying to rely on CPPs to kind of get more accurate attribution. So those things will not go away. Didn't mention at the beginning, with Plarium, we are a gaming company, and although we're mobile first, our games are cross-platform. So we, from the very first day, did not rely just on MMP for attribution. We have our own attribution kind of model. We collect data from players playing also on a PC. Some games are web. Now, and we, whenever a player is paying on other platforms, we need to attribute that to the original cohort of that player. And now with D2C, this becomes even more complicated, because still you want to share the data, the events, with the relevant marketing channels that brought that user to help them help their algorithms to optimize. So on the UA team, on one hand, they struggle to get the quality traffic, to meet their KPIs, to get good ROAS. On the other hand, we know that there are not too many fresh audiences of players out there. And on the other side, the platforms, especially the big ones, they build algorithms. They have optimization, ROS optimizers and other algorithms. And at first they needed to battle privacy, but again, it will not go away. So you have a Meta and Google and Apple and Unity, just to name a few, and those algorithms are black boxes. So UA teams found themselves like in the early days of SEO, trying to reverse engineer the algorithm, the black box algorithm of the platforms to understand how to optimize the campaign. And it's not always it's working. You have a high dependency on creative. You have a great creative. It works on some of the networks, but it doesn't work on another one. So what's the reason for that? It's really difficult.
I totally agree. I think nowadays, all of the channels, all of the different networks have machine learning and different algorithms. There are no more manual bidding. We need to understand how the different algorithms work, not on like the logic behind them, but what kind of postbacks they are using, how we can help them get the most of our data, what signals we are sending to them, and to make sure those signals are accurate and give what we care about. And we need to help them to help us, because otherwise there are a lot of data, and if we won't help them to get the right data, it will backfire on us. That's, I think, one thing. And regarding the optimization on the day-to-day, I don't think there is like, it's not the same as past years, because currently due to the different privacy issues and the user level data, you don't get the same level of granularity of the data, so you cannot make the same optimization. So you need to see how you can fit it within the different models of each network and use those, let's call it benefits or methods that each different network utilize in your way, the best way that you can utilize it, basically.
As said earlier, it's not getting easier, and also it's less sophisticated at one end because it's a black box. Everyone has their own algorithm. If it's AEM, if it's UAC, they tell you, give us a budget, give us the creatives, let us do the work. And then what can we control in general? We can control what type of data we're sending in terms of the events that we're targeting. When are we sending it? How quick are we sending it? And how wide, how scalable it is. So if we can control scale and control the timing for the event, then we can let them get the signals they need as fast as they need, so the machine learning algorithm can do its thing. And on the other end, in terms of creatives, I mean, one creative will work here, the other will work here. I mean, we'll let them decide. We can't control it. You can throw so many on Facebook and Google, and they'll pick just the one you hate, and you cannot control it.
I think you mentioned a lot about the ad platforms and the black boxes. And I do know that since basically probabilistic data is back and fully on, do you believe that the large ad networks are utilizing the situation to gain additional conversions from that? I'm hinting what I think.
Well, you don't expect us to tell what you really think. Yeah, but it's a gray area in some cases. And as I said, we need to take the best effort to understand how to get the most out of the situation, right? And they have the algorithms, they're modeling some of the data, and this is what we can do to make it work. I think that with all of those challenges still, if I look at the industry over the past decade or so, it's still very consolidated in last touch or last click. And unfortunately, nobody was able to get past that. But again, we need to work with what we have, right? So.
So currently, I think most of the industry is using last click or last attribution, the touch time, basically. I do think that during the last 1 or 2 years, we saw an increase in CTR, in trying to, I don't know, not call it manipulate, but trying to get more attribution, increase the share of attribution from those impressions. That's one thing. We internally doing another layer of attribution after also the MMP, trying to sometime let's say, clean up some of those attribution and move things around with our internal logic. We see each impression, each click, and decide what is the impact of those touch points regarding the conversion, and then reattribute some of those conversions. But I do think this is a big challenge currently. With that being said, I don't see any other way currently as an industry without using last click. I do hope to find something, but currently this is the only solution that we have.
Yeah, I can recommend some tools later.
So yeah, in terms of what you hinted for in the original question, I don't think it's healthy for a brand to also have attribution and to have user acquisition in a studio. They got rid of the studio or getting rid of it, but the stock is 6,000% higher in 2 years. So it's better than Bitcoin. Probably they're doing something right. I don't know if they're doing something wrong in terms of moral, but that being said, it's not like you have a choice. You want to utilize that kind of inventory. You either advertise it or not. If they state they're not going to utilize your data, you hope that's the case, and that's it.
So how do you still control basically bottom line improvements when you're solely relying on less touch? I think we all agree it's not enough and you need something in addition. Dan, you've mentioned your internal attribution model, so I guess that's one of the methods. But basically, how do you keep control? How do you make sure that when you're spending more money, you're getting incremental value, you're getting added value? There are a lot of ways to do it, but like less touch is just not cutting it. So what are you using to control that?
I think I can divide my answer into two parts. First, under the try to use what tools that are available. So the MLPs do provide you with some kind of means to change the way that you use them, whether it's like the length of attribution windows, deciding whether to use impression based or not. We have also the initiative was called engaged views. Again, before that, some channels were abusing it and sending clicks instead of impressions. All of that can give you maybe some additional level of control. Also, you can decide whether, okay, a player that churned and came back, whether you want to treat it as a new install and put it on a new cohort, or maybe you want to treat it as a returning player. So all of that enriches your ability to measure and attribute the ROAS properly. So we can say, okay, I'm spending now, the return I got, is it from that budget, or is it like maybe a user that came back from an older cohort? And as I said, we also have an attribution model because some of our players, for example, they will initially come to the game on iOS, but then they will also go to play on PC, or maybe they use the web store. So it's important to attribute the revenue from that player to the original core so that our measurement will be, and our models, predictive models will be correct. Having said that, we also tried in the past years other methods. We tried to have an MMM solution. We tried INCRMNTAL. It didn't work for us. I think maybe one of the main reasons for that is that we are a gaming company. Again, we're not a brand. So most, if not all, of our budget is online performance. We used to have some linear TV. We try CTV, but the majority is relatively measurable. So those solutions, I think they have less of added value for a company like ours.
So I think that, as I said before, we do rely mostly on our MMP postbacks. Currently, we do have another layer of internal attribution. With that being said, we also tried MMM and some incrementality test. We do incrementality tests with a few different activities. Sometimes if it's a brand activity and sometimes it's a new feature, we try to do incrementality tests, GeoLift. So we do those tests occasionally. With that being said, we are not utilizing it as a business as usual models currently, but we do look on the full picture from few different layouts. Like we have the basic or more steady MMP postbacks. We have our internal layer of attribution on top of it. And we also have the MMM as a supportive decision methods. But I think that in order with today's world, you have to rely on few different data points. also have a good common, let's call it understanding or logic to try to challenge the data and see how to choose right. I don't know how to. Yeah, but it's not like you need to understand sometimes the different bits and bytes of the data, because otherwise you can make one decision and it won't necessarily be the right one, because due to attribution models, due to CTVs or different environmental things in the industry, or a lot of different factors they need to take into account. That's why you also look on MMMs, as well as our internal measurement, as well as the MMPs, as well as SK networks for some channels, because we try to get the full visibility in order to make a more actionable or accurate decisions.
I think it comes down to how many platforms you're utilizing. So if you're only on the big four, let's say it's Meta, Apple, and on Google, then you have Meta. You can use custom product pages, so you neutralize that. You know, at least for the CPP, how much traffic is in, even if it's not exactly attributed 100% on Apple search ads. Since March, they supported view through, so even back then, before, if a user would search for you and then install directly without going to your page, it was not counting as a tap, and you'd get it free install, basically. Not free, but it would not be counted. Now it is counted with a view throw. So if you're using these top three and that's most of your volume, incrementality would not matter. If you want to check that, you can always isolate by checking specific geos and seeing the lift. All in all, if you have a lot of networks, and we have not, it's not the case in our end, and at least not in terms of share volume. So for us, it's less important at this stage.
Yeah, I believe, I joined Incremental because incrementality, to me, is something that is it's super valuable. And I think that every company aims to understand what is the bottom line performance. And I think that with last touch attribution, because it's so easy, sometimes it just gets comfortable to optimize and make budgets based on less touch because it's easy. It's one kind of source of truth. And I do believe that still today, even with going back privacy-wise, it's really important, especially for large companies that have more than 3, 4, 5 channels, especially saturated games that are in the market for a long time, that it's really hard to differentiate, and it's also hard to experiment. I do also believe that if you're a very small company that doesn't need an incrementality tool, you should still always optimize towards your bottom line performance and see that when you add spend, you create value, you generate value, and always monitor your top line revenues. And I do want to ask you guys, where do you think the industry is heading in everything related to measurement in the upcoming 5 years?
I do want to say one thing regarding the last question. When you have your internal attribution or your internal data, either from MMM, incrementality, MMP, regardless, you need to take into account that what also those networks are getting, the data they are getting, this is the way they see the world. So if you have an MMM incrementality or your internal model and you make decision upon it, you need to make sure that it's not totally different from what the different networks are getting, because you are sending them signals to optimize for something. You're making decision for something else. Those two will move apart from one another, and it won't serve you as a business because you're not sending the right signals to those networks that are working for you.
Yes, but there are ways to collaborate and also make sure that the networks are aware of, for example, your incrementality tool, so they can use, and I do definitely agree that those should work together. So where do you think the industry is heading?
Yeah, so I think we are facing exponential kind of pace of changes, and I think that if I need to think about two main things, that one is the devices. Okay, we are hooked to our mobile phones, but we see what's happening. It's not going to stop there. Things like VR, glasses, not to mention, I don't know, implants to the brain. So and
5 years.
yeah, maybe. And content will come to those channels, right? And if content is there, user attention and time is there, so ads will have to come there. And if there are ads, then we will need to measure it. Okay, so that's one thing. Second thing, of course, can have a talk without it. It's AI, right? So and AI is something that we need to think how to use for measurement. And the way that on one hand the platforms are using it for their models to create those algorithms. On our end, we already see it impacting how creatives are being generated. That's the first step. Maybe it's the easiest one for now. So let's say everybody's kind of visioning or talking about the AI agent that will run the campaigns and optimize it instead of a person. I think that in order for that to happen, it comes back to the attribution question, because for the model, for the agent, it can be garbage in, garbage out. So you need to have the right data, the right attribution, so that the model can take the right decision. So we need to work hard to get that right, so that AI can help us to be more efficient and more productive.
So I do think that we will have major changes in the upcoming years. With that being said, if I look on the next year, I think the big major change going to be with the creative side of things. Currently, we can see the different, let's say, generative videos, generative AI, VEO, Sora models being utilized into the industry or into the market. I think that in the next year, we will see more and more videos being generated, and this will cause not yet level of saturation, but it will be coming later on as well as more and more saturated, and it will cause different. It will cause an impact from the audience as well afterwards. But first thing is to utilize those generative models, I think, because we can create a lot of different creatives, more segmented, more personalized, more high-end production-wise with fast delivery. That I think the most impacts that we will see this year. With that being said, I do think that agentic AI and the ability to analyze data sets to get much more faster decisions, much more faster answers is a big change as well, but it will make 70-80% of the heavy lifting or the hard work. We will still need to make the decision making on the human for this year. I think also probably next year, 26, 27, but it's definitely coming there, and we will need to see how we can rely them as tools so we can make better decisions, and it comes down to data so they can basically make better decisions and support us in the decision making.
I think it's going to be all around. We're seeing it right now on the creative side mainly, but if a year ago we said AI is coming, now we can say AI is here. Right now, even if I look at my browsing, 20% of my browsing is using agentic browser, so the browser of OpenAI or Flow, where I gave it, ask it to do automations on my end, so it can either change bids based on data, or it can create the creatives and upload them on your behalf. So that's already a capability. But when agentic is going to be more agentic, then it's going to be the full 360 of optimization and data ingestion and basically decision making on your behalf while you're being a router, maybe giving some advice. But overall, it's here. It's already usable in a way that not just for creating and also the creations, right? If you look a month ago, you would still distinguish between human and not human generated. But when you look at Sora or VO3 by Google, I cannot distinguish the generatives there. So it's already undistinguished. And if it's not, then it means that quality is on par with huge productions that would cost you $50K, $100K. You can do it with one prompt. And with agentic, it can also upload them and create the ad and optimize the bids. So we're there. We're already there. We just need to utilize it.
And how do you think it will change in terms of measurement?
It's difficult to say, but I think that as long as we're kind of the basics will remain the same, then naturally it will change. We believe that correct measurement is user-based measurement, not device-based measurement, which is one limitation that we have in the industry. I don't know if AI will help measurement companies with that, but I think that for the MMPs to make their own leap into this era, they also need to change. And if they will have better solutions because of that, it will help the entire industry.
I think that I agree with Amir. The biggest leap will probably be on the MMP side. I will say that it's a cat and mouse play with fraud and anti-fraud that the machine learnings and the different algorithms will take into action, putting more anti-fraud and putting more fraud attempts with the different touch points or impressions, clicks, whatever we will utilize on that end. Taking into account the additional placement that we are having, we can see on CTV there's a lot of innovations regarding frauds or trying to get the attribution in different unique ways. So I think it's a cat of mouse game on that end. With that being said, I do think that we are going to see more user or person-based attribution coming forward. Also because the market is maturing. More and more games are getting more and more mature, and a player that played the game 2 years ago was active for 1 year, 2 years, change a device, uninstall, install. I do want to make a continuity with the attribution of this user. So this also take into account more person or device or person-based attribution into the game.
The tools and the routines are going to be almost identical, but the difference is that you're going to have, because the gap between not having your own data and having it is now not so big. It's easier for you to create your own small DMP or data platform collection of data and ingesting and digesting it and getting even targeting with that kind of data outwards. So I'd say you'd be more powerful because it's easier for you to operate your own data. And in terms of the operation, it's going to be pretty much the same because the data points are not changing.
Okay, so we have like 2 minutes. So in a short sentence, relatively, try giving the audience one key takeaway to take from today as measurement owners in the industry, or whatever you want to say.
I would say keep investing in the data. Have a single source of truth, of attribution, whether it's like from MMP or yours that you trust, and prepare it to be used by AI.
I think that you need to understand the different tools, how you can utilize them, and think ahead of some of the issues, like prepare your data set, your internal infrastructures, so you can utilize them in a few months or in the upcoming years, either way with internal tools or external tools. But you need to have structure and order, because without it, you will get a lot of data, and you need to make a decision based on those data, and the models will take those data sets. So you need to make sure that the details are accurate and the data is ordered and basically ready to be ingested.
Build the foundation in a way that it's structured so AI can analyze, because it's not going to be you. You're going to just build context for it. Get used to giving your work to agents, because that's what's going to happen. And like before, if you have a task already, instead of giving it to somebody, just try to solve it on your own. Like let your codex or whatever agent you're using do it on your behalf. Even if some operation or a computer, you want to minify a video, you want to upload it, try to do it without yourself. Because if you're not used to it, it's going to be harder for you to get used to what's going to happen in a year or two.
Thank you. I will just say that basically it's really important to also be in touch with your ad networks and with your partners to make sure that you are getting added value, and always monitor to make sure that you're top line is growing, whether you do it with AI implemented in your systems, whether you do it by the general or like the basic, the ordinary ways. And always be like, always note what's happening, always monitor your North Star, and don't leave out basically growth or revenues out. Thank you so much for being here today. Until now, really appreciate it. Thank you everyone here.